I eat oatmeal. Do you guys eat oatmeal? What's up, Golden Frying Pan people? Welcome back to the kitchen. Bizarrely, I'm talking about an actual food. What is this? I don't really like oatmeal all that much. I personally prefer the infinitely better thing, which is cereal. But I've come to learn, regretfully, that cereal is actually like really bad for you. What gave it away? That the thing that is basically sugar and tastes like candy and tastes really really good is actually not really the best for you, right? I remember as a kid I used to eat Captain Crunch every morning for breakfast. I love me some Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch is goated, but it is practically candy. Not even practically. It's just candy. And since I'm trying to focus on my health, which I feel like is the only reason why anyone ever eats oatmeal, it's like it's I'm trying to focus on being a better version of me, that type of deal. That feels like pretty consistently the main reason why people have oatmeal. That's a pretty good reasoning, as it's like really good for you or something like that. I don't know. It's also cheap and it lasts forever, which I think makes sense because it's just like oats. It's just straight up oats that you boil, which I hate boiling things. Boiling things always make things mushy and taste bad, and it's not great, but it's also like the only way to properly cook oatmeal, because one of the differences between oatmeal and cereal is you have to actually cook it in the morning, unless if you're eating that stuff raw. It's not like, cereal where you just put in some milk or whatever, and that's it. You just eat it. Or if you're a psychopath, you can eat it without milk. But we hate people that do that because they suck, and I hate them. If you do that, I hate you. Not really. But no, you have to actually cook oatmeal, which is a little bit interesting, It's not hard to cook. Boiling things is not hard. It's one of the reasons why, so many people do it. But it does take an amount of time. Like, you have to focus on it. You do have to give it intention, right? You can't just wake up and then like that have oatmeal at your disposal. At least not in the way that you can have something like breakfast cereal, right? You just can't really do it the same way. That's not really how it works. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's something that I've come to realize actually probably makes it much better than cereal. Don't get me wrong, I love cereal. I love me, as stated, some Captain Crunch. Yeah. I love me some Captain Crunch. I love me some Nature Grain or something like that. One that has like almonds, and then you add a little bit of sugar, and at that point you're just patting yourself on the back. It's not sugar, or it's not breakfast. It's not healthy at all at that point. Whenever you have to add extra sugar to cornflakes, which is, for those who do not know, digested like sugar. So you're basically just having sugar with sugar, but it's so good. It's so good. But oatmeal, you have, like, as stated, you have to like actually cook it. And interestingly enough, I think that the act of cooking it adds a little bit of depth to oatmeal. I know that I'm kind of reaching here, but it was something that I was genuinely thinking about earlier today, that whenever you have something that you can just, rip and go, that's obviously really nice and really convenient, but whenever you have something that you have to slow down and put a lot more thought and intention into, the whole thing becomes a lot more kind of interesting, Cereal is definitely more convenient, and I will not argue with anyone that says oatmeal is boring. However, those 10 minutes that are needed to cook oatmeal adds a bizarre amount of depth and thought that go into oatmeal because it's sort of a trade-off, you know. That means that you can't just have oatmeal immediately. You have to put it on a timer. There is a sort of sense of urgency, if you will. There is a juggling of time of what you want to do and what you can do, right? Oatmeal on its own is very boring. However, intent is not. And whenever you have to spend time with something, whenever you have this sort of exchange, right, where you are giving up more whenever you make oatmeal, right? You are blatantly giving up more time whenever you make oatmeal. You are giving up the fact that oatmeal tastes vastly, just so impressively worse than cereal. You're giving up things. However, that doesn't mean it's not worth it, right? Because clearly people still eat oatmeal. It's not like no one eats oatmeal. It is, you know, clearly the oatmeal industry, those people at Quaker, those people at Quaker know what they're doing and are clearly not hurting for it. But that sense of intent, I think, is really, really interesting. As, you know, you can, to put thought behind something, to put a bit of time behind something, shows a level of heart and character that not a lot of things can necessarily achieve. It requires foresight. It requires you to care about something. Those who do not care about themselves don't eat oatmeal. Did that make any sense? Whenever you see someone that eats oatmeal, your first thought is probably not, wow, they really are letting themselves go. Maybe. And under some contexts, I could definitely understand that. But comparatively, cereal and oatmeal, someone that has oatmeal, someone that goes out of their way to eat oatmeal instead of something like cereal, means that they probably care about their health maybe a little bit more than someone that has that cereal, right? Which is very interesting. Not necessarily talking about just health, but also lifestyle and stories, because I think that having that sense of intent, that forethought, is really, really impressive, and it's really, really important as well. The more thought you put into something, the more fleshed out it tends to be. The more, you tend to really appreciate it, I would say. That might not be entirely true. However, I think that it adds a bit of complexity to it. It adds a bit of depth to something that is so simple and so stupid as oatmeal or anything that you want, right? Putting a little bit of thought can go a long way. Now, obviously, whenever you get into something like anxiety or overthinking, that's a lot. That's a different story, as you will just think and overthink. But the intention behind something is still very, very, very important, right? Something can be good, but if someone, goes out with the intention for it to be bad, that's definitely a bit of a issue, right? There have been plenty of good things that were, bad things that were intended to be good. There's a laundry list of things that were initially supposed to help and benefit us that in the end only came to our detriment, which is, I think, very, very interesting to show how many good things can be turned and how many bad things can be made useful. The machine gun, the person that made the machine gun, and it might be the machine gun or the Gatling gun. This is so hilarious in a dramatic irony sense. He thought that it would stop all wars because it was a weapon that was so deadly that people would just not be able to do war anymore. He's like, it's just too good. Obviously, that did not happen, right? Quite regretfully so, I'd say. But it's still something to appreciate and kind of laugh at, that we're able to laugh at, you know, because like, oh wow, there's such a disconnect between the thought and the intent and the actual reality, which can be the negative of putting thought behind something. Not only can you overthink, but also you can think about something improperly, right? Which I think is where a lot of overthinking comes from. It comes from the fear of, oh, what if this is my perception? What if this is wrong? What if this is just incorrect? And that, of course, has valid moments. As just stated, a guy made a machine of death and was like, this is going to do a great job ending all wars. And then it didn't. And that sense is entirely valid. However, you can't really let that overtake you, right? You can't let that stop you. You should still eat oatmeal, right? It would be ridiculous to think that just because you put more thought into eating oatmeal, that all of oatmeal should not be eaten, right? It's an absolutely ridiculous notion, because oatmeal's good for you, and sometimes can taste okay. The best it gets is okay, but it can taste all right. It can taste fine, and it is good for you. I mean, people have been eating it for centuries and centuries and centuries now, because it's just oats that you boil, and that's it. And when going throughout your life, I do think that it's really important to have intent, to understand why you're doing it, to put thought into things, even silly things. It's okay to be, you know, interested, and to be conscious of something, and maybe even a little obsessed. Not super obsessed. Don't get super obsessed. Don't go out and like, you know, kill yourself for someone. But it is good to have a conscious thought going forward with things. It tends to add a lot of... You have to keep in mind, most of the things that people like, most of the things that we take for granted now, at one point was just a thought. And that's really interesting. I hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you guys next week.